The cafeteria of Zyron Space Academy was always loud. Hundreds of voices from dozens of alien worlds filled the air every day. Strange laughs, sharp clicks, metallic tones, and echoing hums. But today, one kind of laughter stood out. It was cruel. At a corner table sat Lyra, an alien girl from the heavy-gravity planet Tyrannus. Her skin shimmered faint blue, her large golden eyes looking down at her tray. She was big, bigger than most of her classmates, not because of laziness, but because Tyrannus gravity made every body thick and strong. Yet here, far from home, that same body made her a joke. A group of tall, thin Varnax students pointed at her from another table. "Look at her," one said. "Does she ever stop eating?" Laughter followed, loud and sharp, bouncing across the metallic walls. Lyra tried to ignore them. She kept her eyes on her food, a simple meal of nutrient paste and fruit cubes. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon. She didn't want to cry. Not again. Tears would only make them laugh more. On her first day at the academy, she had tried to make friends. She smiled, offered help in classes, even brought snacks from her world to share. But instead of friendship, she got whispers, insults, and cruel nicknames. The hungry one, the heavy Tyrannus, Blob Girl. She learned to eat alone. Every day at lunch, she sat in that same corner hoping to be invisible, but today they didn't let her fade. "Careful, she might eat the table next," another voice shouted. The cafeteria burst into more laughter. Her spoon froze in midair. The paste on it trembled. Lyra's chest felt tight. Around her, dozens of eyes stared. Some pitied her. Most didn't care. Her throat hurt. Her stomach turned. She looked down and whispered to herself, "Just finish quickly, then go. Just finish and go." But the laughter didn't stop. That was when the door opened. A soft hiss of air came as the pressure lock released. The noise drew everyone's attention for a moment. A human had entered, tall, calm, wearing the gray uniform of the Earth Cadet Division. His name tag read, Eli Carter. Humans were rare at Zyron Academy. There were only a few dozen among thousands of alien students. And though most aliens saw humans as weak, thin, slow, fragile, there was something about Eli that made people silent when he walked in. He looked around the cafeteria once, scanning the tables. Then his gaze stopped. Right on Lyra. She noticed him too, and quickly looked away, embarrassed. She didn't want another person to see her shame, but Eli kept watching. He saw the way the others laughed. He saw the way she tried to disappear, and something in his heart twisted. Anger, maybe, or empathy. He took his tray, walked past the crowded tables, and headed straight toward her corner. The laughter slowed. Whispers replaced it. What's he doing? Is he really going to sit with her? Lyra froze. Her heart raced. She didn't dare look up. She thought maybe he would just pass by, but he stopped right in front of her table. Is this seat taken? He asked, his voice calm and steady. Lyra blinked. No one had ever asked her that. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She shook her head slowly. Eli smiled a little and placed his tray down. Then he sat. The cafeteria went dead quiet. You could hear spoons clinking from far away, but near them, only silence. The group that had mocked her watched in disbelief. Why is he sitting there? One whispered. Humans are strange, another hissed. Lyra looked up at him carefully. His uniform was clean, his brown hair slightly messy. He didn't look at her like the others did, not with disgust or pity, just normal. She wanted to ask him why, but she couldn't. Her voice was gone. Eli started eating casually, as if nothing unusual was happening. Then he said, You know, food tastes better when someone eats with you. Lyra's eyes widened. No one had ever said something kind to her in this place. She didn't reply, but a small smile tried to form. For the first time since arriving at the academy, She didn't feel invisible. Around them, the laughter had stopped. Everyone was watching, confused and whispering. But Eli didn't care. He just kept eating. Lyra looked down at her tray again. The same meal she had hated minutes ago suddenly felt warm, and for the first time in weeks she took another bite. Not out of hunger, but out of peace. No one knew it yet. But that simple act, a human choosing to sit beside the alien everyone mocked, was about to change the whole academy. Forever. The cafeteria stayed silent long after Eli sat down. Dozens of eyes watched the human and the alien girl who never spoke. Even the air seemed to pause, waiting, listening. Eli didn't seem to care. He sat calmly, eating his lunch like it was the most normal thing in the universe. His fork clinked softly against the tray. The smell of his food mixed with the sharp metallic scent of the alien dishes around them. Across from him, Lyra sat frozen. She didn't know what to say. Her mind raced. Is this a joke? Will he laugh too? Her golden eyes darted to the human's face, then back to her tray. Eli noticed her nervousness. He gave a small smile. Not a big one, not fake, just soft and real. You don't talk much, do you? He asked gently. Lyra hesitated, then whispered, People don't want to hear me talk. Her voice was quiet and deep, like a low hum from far away. Eli's smile didn't fade. Well, I do. So go ahead. Lyra blinked in surprise. Her eyes searched his face for mockery, but found none. No judgment, no laughter, only patience. For a moment, she forgot everyone else was watching. She took a small breath. I'm from Tyrannus, she said. Eli nodded. I know that planet. Strong gravity, right? Yes, she replied, her voice gaining a little strength. Our muscles grow fast, our bodies grow wide, but here, she looked down. Here it means ugly. Eli leaned back in his chair, his brown eyes thoughtful. Where I'm from, he said slowly. We say strength comes in many shapes. Maybe they just haven't learned that yet. Lyra's heart felt strange, light, like the gravity around her had weakened. No one had ever said words like that to her before. From across the room, the Varnak students were still whispering. One of them pointed a small holo recorder secretly filming. Another snickered. The human must be blind. But Eli didn't notice. Or maybe he did and simply didn't care. Why are you sitting here? Lyra finally asked, her voice trembling. You could sit with your friends. Eli took a sip of his drink before answering. Because sitting alone feels colder than space, he said. And you looked cold. Lyra's spoon stopped mid-air. No one had ever described her loneliness like that before. Cold, she repeated softly, almost to herself. Yes, it does feel like that. A small silence grew between them. Not uncomfortable, but calm. Around them, the sound of the cafeteria returned little by little. Conversations restarted, trays clattered, but a few curious eyes still peeked at the corner table, where something unusual was happening. Eli finished his food first. He placed his fork down, then looked at her again. You know, he said lightly, on Earth we eat together because it reminds us we're not alone. Lyra tilted her head, confused but interested. Not alone? Yeah. My grandmother used to say, when someone eats with you, they share not just food, but heart. Lyra smiled, a real smile this time. Your grandmother is wise. She was, Eli said softly. She'd like you. Lyra laughed quietly, a soft musical sound that made a few nearby students turn in surprise. They had never heard her laugh before. For the first time, she didn't care what they thought. After a few minutes, Eli stood up to leave. Well, he said, I should get to training before the bots start yelling at me again. He picked up his tray, then paused. Will you be here tomorrow? Lyra looked up, surprised again. Do you want to eat again? Eli smiled. If you'll let me. She nodded slowly. Then yes, I'll be here. Eli gave a small salute, half serious, half playful, and walked away. As he passed the tables, whispers followed him. Did you see that? The human actually sat with her. Why would he do that? He didn't answer. He just walked out, calm and steady. When he was gone, Lyra looked at his empty chair. For the first time since joining the academy, the seat across from her wasn't empty in her heart. She finished the rest of her food slowly. The taste felt different, not because of the food itself, but because someone had shared it with her. As she stood to leave, the bullies from earlier looked away. None of them laughed this time. Maybe they were confused. Maybe they were afraid. Or maybe deep down they had seen something stronger than mockery, human courage. That night, Lyra lay in her dorm room, staring at the ceiling lights. For the first time, she replayed a memory not of laughter or shame, but of kindness. And she whispered to herself before sleep, maybe not all humans are cruel. Maybe some are different. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning, the first spark of something much greater than friendship. Because one human's small act of kindness was about to change her life, and the entire academy. The next day came quietly. Outside Zyron Space Academy, the twin suns of the planet Varion rose over silver clouds, painting gold light across the academy towers. Inside, the halls buzzed with chatter and the hum of drones cleaning the floors. But in the cafeteria, one corner table stayed empty, waiting. Lyra walked in, her heart pounding faster than usual. She tried to walk slowly, pretending not to care, but her golden eyes searched the room. Would he come? She wondered. Or was it just a one-time thing? The cafeteria was full again. Laughter, noise, clattering trays. The same group of Varnic bullies sat where they always did. Their eyes followed her like hunters. Look, one of them hissed. She came back to her lonely corner again. Lyra ignored them, though her hands trembled slightly. She sat at her usual table, alone for now, and placed her meal tray down. The food looked the same. A bowl of nutrient paste, 2 cubes of fruit, and water. She stared at it but didn't start eating. She waited. Minutes passed. The laughter from the other tables grew louder, crueler. Maybe he wasn't coming. Maybe she was foolish to believe a human would return. Her eyes lowered. Of course, she whispered to herself. Why would he? Then the door hissed open. A familiar figure walked in. Tall, calm, with that same quiet confidence. Eli Carter. He held his tray, scanned the room once, and smiled when he saw her. The bullies fell silent as he walked by them. One muttered, "He's actually doing it again." Eli didn't even look at them. He just kept walking until he reached her table. "Morning," he said. Lyra blinked, trying not to show her relief. "You came." "Of course I did," he said, sitting down. "You promised to save me a seat." For a moment, Lyra didn't know how to reply. She looked down, hiding a smile. The two began to eat quietly. Around them, the cafeteria was full of whispers again, but this time the laughter was weaker. Some curious students only stared. Some even looked thoughtful. It was strange. No one said a word to them, yet the air around their table felt heavy, almost sacred, like everyone knew something important was happening but didn't understand it. They ate in silence for a while. But it wasn't awkward. It was a peaceful silence and warm and steady. Eli broke it first. "You know, people here look at you like you're different," he said. "But I think that's what makes you interesting." Lyra looked up slowly. "Interesting?" she repeated softly. "Yeah. On Earth we have a saying. The stars that shine brightest are the ones alone in the dark." Lyra smiled faintly. "Your people speak in beautiful words." Eli laughed lightly. "Sometimes. Mostly we just make mistakes and try again." That made her laugh too, quiet but real. It was a sound that seemed to echo beyond the walls of the cafeteria. One of the bullies muttered under his breath, "She's laughing now? What's next? They'll be best friends?" Eli heard it. He didn't turn, but his voice carried enough steel. "Maybe we will," he said calmly. The whisperers froze. None dared to answer. Lyra blinked in surprise. No one had ever defended her so openly before. Her chest felt tight, not from shame this time, but from something new, something warm. She said softly, "Why do you stand up for me, human?" Eli looked at her seriously. "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." The words hit deep. She wanted to reply, but emotion caught her throat. So instead, she nodded and looked at her tray again. They ate the rest of the meal quietly, but the silence now felt full, not empty. Outside the windows, the suns climbed higher. The metal floor gleamed. The noise of the cafeteria faded in their corner, replaced by something peaceful. When they finished, Eli leaned back. "You know, Lyra, someday they'll stop laughing." She looked doubtful. "You really believe that?" "I do," he said simply. "Humans have a habit of changing things, sometimes for worse, but sometimes for the better." For a long moment, Lyra just looked at him. Maybe he was right. Maybe one small act could really change how people saw her. As Eli stood up to leave, she said softly, "Eli, thank you." He turned, smiled, and replied, "Don't thank me yet. This is only the beginning." He walked away, leaving her with that promise echoing in her mind. For the rest of the day, no one dared to mock her. Some still whispered, but the laughter was gone. That night, as she looked out the window of her dorm room at the twin moons above the academy, she whispered, "Maybe tomorrow, I'll sit a little taller." She didn't know that soon. The world around her would test that courage, and that the bond between her and the human would grow into something the galaxy had never seen before. Because sometimes, the quietest meal can begin the loudest change. Days turned into weeks at Xiron Space Academy, and something strange began to happen. The cafeteria, once filled with cruel laughter, had grown quieter. No one mocked Lyra anymore, at least not when Eli Carter was around. Every lunch, the same scene repeated. The human and the alien girl sat together, sharing small words, small smiles, and long silences that somehow felt like music. For most students, it was confusing. For Lyra, it was life-changing. She had started to talk more, and softly at first, then with growing confidence. Eli listened to every word as if it mattered, and for the first time in her life, she believed that maybe it did. One quiet evening, after training drills, they met again. The academy's twin moons glowed above the practice field, casting silver light on the ground. Eli sat on a bench, still in his gray uniform, watching small drones sweep across the sky. Lyra joined him, her heavy boots pressing softly into the metal floor. "You train too much," she said, her tone light. He grinned. "And you watch too much." She smiled, sitting beside him. The night breeze carried the faint hum of machines and the scent of ozone. For a while, neither spoke. The silence between them was calm, the kind of silence that only exists between two people who understand each other. Then Eli asked, "Lyra, can I ask something personal?" She looked at him carefully. "You already do that every day," he chuckled. "True, but this time I mean it." She nodded slowly. "Ask." Eli turned toward her, his voice gentle. "Why did you come here? To this academy, I mean. You're smart and strong, but every time I see you, it feels like you're fighting something bigger than just school." Lyra's smile faded. Her golden eyes lowered to the ground. For a long moment, she said nothing. The hum of the drones filled the space between them. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't come here by choice." Eli frowned slightly. "You didn't?" "No." She paused, breathing deeply. "On my planet, Tyrannus, every child must pass the gravity trials. They test your strength, speed, and balance. Those who pass become honored warriors. Those who fail..." Her voice trembled. "They are sent away, forgotten." Eli's chest tightened. "You failed?" Lyra nodded slowly. "I tried my best. But my body, it's not made for speed. I was strong but slow. They said I was weak, a disgrace. My father couldn't even look at me. My mother cried, but she couldn't stop them." Her voice cracked slightly and she blinked fast to hide the moisture in her eyes. "They sent me here, to learn, to find purpose," they said. But really it was exile. Eli didn't speak for a while. He just listened, his eyes filled with quiet empathy. When she finished, he said softly, "They were wrong." Lyra turned to him. "Wrong?" "Yeah," he said firmly. "Back home we have this thing called gravity training. It's tough. Even strong people struggle. If you lived your whole life under 10 times normal gravity, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you tougher than anyone here." Lyra blinked. "Tougher?" Eli smiled. "You grew up where others wouldn't even survive. That's not weakness, Lyra, that's strength." The words hit her like a wave of warmth. For a moment she forgot how to breathe. No one had ever called her strong before, not since she was a child. She whispered, "You really think so?" Eli nodded. I know so, and one day they'll know it too. Lyra looked up at the stars. The twin moons reflected in her golden eyes like tiny suns. For the first time, she didn't see a world that had rejected her. She saw a universe that still had space for her. After a moment, she asked softly, Eli, why are you always kind to me? He shrugged lightly. Because someone once did the same for me. I was the small one on Earth, weak, bullied, forgotten, until one person showed me I mattered. I guess I'm just passing it on. Lyra smiled, her heart heavy and light at the same time. Then I'm glad you did. They sat in silence again, watching the stars. The air around them glowed faintly with drifting light from the Academy's energy fields. Eli said quietly, You know, Lyra, maybe your people were right about one thing. You did come here to find purpose, but not the one they thought. Lyra tilted her head. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. Maybe you came here to remind everyone, even humans, what real strength looks like. She looked at him for a long moment, then laughed softly. Maybe, she said. Maybe you're right. And for the first time since she left Tyrannus, she felt a spark of pride inside her chest, and small, glowing, unbreakable. That night, Lyra wrote a single line in her digital logbook before sleep. Today, I learned that strength is not what others see. It's what you carry inside when no one else believes in you. And far away in the same dorm block, Eli looked out the window at the stars and whispered, Sometimes one story can change the whole galaxy. Morning light poured through the glass walls of Xiron Space Academy, bouncing off the steel floors and the humming machines. It was training day, the day every cadet dreaded, and every bully loved. The Academy's courtyard was alive with noise. Robots whirred. Students shouted, and the gravity simulation chamber stood ready. It was a huge dome filled with shifting lights, a place designed to test endurance and strength. Today's test was the Gravity Endurance Challenge, a trial where each student had to stand, move and lift objects as the gravity field grew stronger every minute. Lyra stood near the back, her pulse heavy in her chest. She could already hear the whispers. Watch her fall again. She's too big for this test. She'll crush the floor before the gravity does. She tried not to listen, but the words stabbed deep. Her heart whispered, not again. Please, not again. Across the room, Eli Carter watched quietly. He noticed the sneers, the mocking eyes, the cruel smiles. His jaw tightened. Instructor Vorn, a tall alien with silver eyes, stepped forward. Cadets, he announced, today you will prove your control under extreme gravity. Fail and you'll repeat the course next cycle. The lights in the dome glowed red. The simulation began. Each cadet stepped into their circle as the pressure increased. The air shimmered. Lyra could already feel it, the invisible weight pressing down, growing heavier by the second. Her legs trembled. Her breathing turned sharp. The others moved easily at first, laughing, competing, showing off. The Varnak bullies were among them. Slim, fast, confident. One of them, Tyrn, grinned and called out loud, Try not to fall too soon, Tyrannus. A few laughed. Lyra looked down, trying to stay calm. But the gravity field was merciless. Her heavy body felt even heavier now, every step like dragging a mountain. Her knees shook. Sweat rolled down her temples. Her heart screamed, I can't do it. I can't. Then a voice came through the communicator in her earpiece. Breathe slow. You've got this. It was Eli. She looked up and there he was, standing in the circle beside her. She hadn't even noticed him join the same row. What are you doing here? She managed to whisper. He smiled slightly. If they want to watch someone fall, they can watch me too. She blinked, stunned. You'll fail. Then we fail together, he said simply. The gravity rose again. Level 5, 6, 7. The ground pulsed under their feet. Some cadets began to drop out, but Lyra stayed. Eli stayed. At level 8, her arms trembled. Her vision blurred. The weight was crushing now, 10 times normal gravity. Her boots sank slightly into the padded floor. Tyrn laughed from across the dome. Look, the blob's about to break! Eli turned his head toward him, his voice calm but firm. Keep talking, Tyrn. Maybe your mouth will win the test for you. The laughter died instantly. Vorn's metallic voice echoed. Level 10. Final round. Lift the core stone. At the center of each circle, a small glowing orb rose from the floor, the core stone weighing as much as a boulder under the intense gravity. Lyra looked at hers. It shimmered faint blue, just like her own skin. Her muscles screamed. Her arms barely moved. She tried once, twice, failed each time. Eli's voice came again, strained but steady. Come on, Lyra. You're from Tyrannus, a world that would crush the rest of us in seconds. You can do this. I can't. Yes, you can. Show them who you are. She looked at him. His body was shaking too, his face pale with effort. Yet his eyes, they burned with belief. Something inside her shifted. The years of shame, the laughter, the rejection, all of it turned into fuel. She gritted her teeth and roared, lifting the orb. Her muscles burned like fire, but it rose, slowly, steadily, until it hovered in her trembling hands. The sensors beeped. Success. The room fell silent. Everyone stared. Even the bullies were speechless. Then Eli, still fighting his own weight, smiled and said between breaths, Told you. You're stronger than you think. She laughed, even under the crushing force. And you're stubborn. Finally, the simulation ended. The gravity dropped back to normal. Students gasped for air, collapsing to their knees. Lyra stood tall. Sweat covered her face, but her eyes shone bright. Eli gave her a small nod. She nodded back. Vorn looked at the scores, his expression unreadable. Impressive, and he said simply, Tyrannus cadet and human cadet. You both passed with top marks. The room was silent for a heartbeat, and then slowly applause began. Soft at first, then stronger. Even some who had laughed before were clapping now. Lyra's chest swelled with pride she'd never felt before. For once, the sound around her wasn't laughter. It was respect. Eli walked beside her, tired but smiling. Told you, he said quietly. Gravity's got nothing on you. She laughed softly. Maybe not anymore. As they walked out of the dome together, the whispers began again, but this time they weren't cruel. This time, they were curious, admiring, because that day, the galaxy saw something new. Not just an alien girl finding her strength, but a human reminding everyone what courage truly looks like. Days passed since the gravity challenge, but the memory of it didn't fade. It spread through Zyron Space Academy like fire through dry grass. The story was whispered in the dorms, repeated in the halls, and shared in the mess lines. The human stood with the Tyrannus girl. She lifted the core stone. They both passed the final level. Even those who once mocked Lyra now looked at her differently. The same mouths that had laughed were suddenly quiet when she walked by. Some even moved aside to let her pass, and not out of fear, but out of something new. Respect. Lyra noticed the change slowly. It began the next morning, when she entered the cafeteria as usual, her heart nervous, expecting the same laughter as before. But this time, there was none. The sound of spoons and voices filled the room, yet no one mocked her. No cruel comments. No whispers. Just quiet glances. Curious, thoughtful, even admiring. Eli was already sitting at their table. He waved casually as if the whole galaxy hadn't just watched them defy gravity together. Morning, he said. Lyra smiled softly. You came early, he shrugged. Couldn't sleep. Fame is exhausting, she laughed quietly. Fame? Yeah, he said. Apparently people like stories where the good guys win. She looked around, seeing eyes turn away the moment she met them. It feels strange, she whispered. Eli nodded. Change always does. They ate together in silence again, that same peaceful silence that had started everything. But this time it felt different. The silence wasn't lonely anymore. It was full of possibility. Later that day, as they walked through the academy corridors, they passed a group of younger cadets. One of them, a small alien with glassy skin, stepped forward nervously. Lyra? She stopped, surprised. Yes? The young cadet looked down shyly.
Can you show me how you lifted the core stone?
I want to try too, Lyra blinked. You want to learn from me? The cadet nodded eagerly. You were amazing. Eli grinned beside her. Looks like you've got fans now. Lyra smiled gently. Of course. I'll help. As she demonstrated the correct stance and breathing technique, more cadets gathered to watch. Not to laugh, but to learn. It felt strange but good. For the first time, her strength wasn't something to hide. It was something to share. By evening, the whole academy seemed different. Where once there had been walls of pride and fear, now there were cracks. Cracks where kindness and curiosity could slip through. Even Turn, The bully who once mocked her kept his head low when she passed. He didn't apologize, but he didn't need to. His silence was enough. Eli noticed it all quietly. He didn't boast or take credit. He just kept walking beside her, smiling at her small victories as if they were his own. That night, as they sat under the glowing skylights near the training yard, Lyra spoke softly. "I never thought people could change this fast." Eli leaned back against the bench. "They didn't," he said. "They just needed to see what real strength looks like." Lyra turned to him. "And what does it look like, Eli?" He smiled faintly. "It looks like someone who keeps standing up even when the world laughs." Her golden eyes shimmered under the starlight. "Then maybe strength and kindness are not so different." "Exactly," he said. "Kindness is strength. It just takes longer for people to see it." For a long time they sat in silence, not awkward, not empty, just peaceful. The kind of peace that only comes when the heart finally finds its place. In the following days, other humans and aliens began sitting together more often. Mixed tables formed in the cafeteria. Different species worked together in training simulations. It wasn't perfect. Old habits take time to die. But something had begun. And it all started because one human had chosen to sit beside one alien who everyone else had ignored. One evening, as the sun set beyond the academy towers, Lyra looked at Eli and said softly, "You changed everything." Eli smiled, shaking his head. "No, we did. I just sat down," she laughed softly. "That simple?" He looked at her kindly. "The hardest things often start simple." That night, Lyra stood by her dorm window watching the stars. She remembered her first lonely meal, the cruel laughter, the human's gentle voice saying, "Food tastes better when someone eats with you." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Maybe the galaxy isn't as cold as I thought." And outside her window, the stars of Xiren seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself had started to change with her. Because sometimes all it takes to warm an entire world is one act of human kindness. A full cycle passed at Xiren Space Academy. The twin suns rose and fell hundreds of times, but the memory of that one lunch, that one act of courage, never faded. By the end of the term, the academy wasn't the same. Different species sat together. Students who once mocked others now trained in teams. The laughter that had once been cruel had changed, softer now, filled with real joy. And at the heart of that change were two cadets, Lyra of Tyrannus and Eli Carter of Earth. The day of the graduation ceremony arrived. The great hall was filled with banners from every planet, glowing colors floating like living lights. The air shimmered with excitement and pride. Rows of cadets stood in their uniforms waiting for their names to be called. At the front sat the instructors, the admirals, and the guests from across the galaxy. When Instructor Vorn stepped up to the podium, his voice echoed through the chamber. "Cadets," he said, "today we honor not only your skills but your growth, as warriors, scientists, and as beings of unity. There is one cadet, however, whose journey reminds us what true strength means." Every eye turned toward Lyra. She froze. Her heart pounded. She hadn't expected this. "Lyra of Tyrannus," Vorn continued, "you are invited to speak." The hall went silent. Lyra walked slowly to the stage, her boots heavy, her palms shaking. For a moment she wanted to run, to hide like she used to. Then she saw Eli in the crowd smiling softly, and suddenly the fear melted away. She stood at the podium, her golden eyes glowing under the lights. The silence was thick, hundreds waiting, listening. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but steady. "When I came here," she began, "I was not strong. I was afraid. I was ashamed of how I looked, how I moved, how I failed." She paused, her gaze moving over the crowd. Many students lowered their eyes, remembering the days they had laughed at her. "On my first day," she continued, "I ate alone. Everyone laughed at me, because I was different. But one human, one simple human, did not laugh." Eli felt a lump in his throat. "He sat beside me," she said, smiling gently. "He didn't speak much. He just shared his meal, as if that small thing could erase all the hate in the room." Lyra took a slow breath. And somehow it did. She looked around the hall, her voice growing stronger. "That day I learned something no textbook can teach. True strength is not in your muscles or your grades. It's in the choice to be kind when others are not. It's in the courage to stand with someone who stands alone. The hall was silent, but the silence was full, heavy with emotion. I used to think being different was something to hide, she said softly. Now I know it's something to honor, because difference is what makes us stronger together. Her eyes glistened, but her smile was steady. So, to the human who reminded me what strength really means, thank you. Her gaze met Eli's. He didn't look away. The entire hall turned toward him. He looked embarrassed, scratching the back of his neck, but he smiled. That same quiet, kind smile that had started it all. Then Lyra looked back at the crowd. If a single human and a single alien can change how one academy sees strength and kindness, imagine what an entire galaxy could do. She stepped back from the podium. The hall erupted in applause, loud, echoing, endless. Even the instructors stood, clapping. Some wiped their eyes discreetly. Eli clapped too, not because she had thanked him, but because she had finally found her voice. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Lyra found Eli outside near the academy gates. The suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. You didn't tell me you were going to make me famous, he teased. She laughed softly. You made yourself famous. I just told the truth. Eli looked out at the horizon. So what now, Tyrannus girl? Lyra smiled. Now I go home. And maybe this time I won't hide, he nodded. And when they ask what changed you? She paused, then said, I'll tell them, a human did. They stood together in silence, watching the stars begin to appear. Two small figures. One human. One alien, standing beneath a vast sky that suddenly didn't seem so empty. That night, as the academy lights dimmed, the story of the obese alien girl and the human who sat with her spread beyond Zyron, across systems, through ships and into the hearts of countless beings. Some called it a legend, some called it a lesson, but to Lyra and Eli it was simply the truth. Humanity's greatest power isn't its strength or its science, it's its heart. And that heart had changed the galaxy forever.